stunning looks than swift.
Well, in the end, South Africa get the job done. It wasn't easy. It wasn't as fluent. It wasn't what you want when you go into a World Cup semi-final. But at least they've gotten the job done. And now they have a big semi-final to look forward to. Afghanistan, they continue to impress. Their wonderful World Cup comes to an end. They can leave Ahmedabad with their heads held high and think of what could have been had they just got a few more moments right in this game. But a game that saw Hashmatullah Shahidi bat first after winning the toss, put South Africa out of their comfort zone, and they found a way to 244 in spite of being 116 for 6 at one stage. The tail wagged. Omar Zai stood out with 97. It's been a standout tournament for him. Noor Ahmed was second highest top scorer at 26, one of 3 batters to get to their 20s. That's where he didn't get the support, but they still managed to make 244 look like a competitive score. Gerald Coetzee is the reason that this game wasn't a 270, 280 game, which could have been trickier. Vander Dussen held it all together after Quinton de Kock gave them a bit of a start. But between Nabi and Rashid, both of whom finished this World Cup at an economy rate of under 5, Afghanistan pushed South Africa, but in the end, South Africa get over the line. They win by 5 wickets. We look back at what this means perhaps for South Africa going into the semi-final. What are the areas they still need to polish? What a wonderful campaign it's been for Afghanistan and for Hashmatullah Shahidi's men. So all that and more on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday, powered by Qatar Airways, with Stephen Harmison and Wasim Jaffer, both of whom did see this coming. Not an easy chase, not a dominant chase. Harmy would have loved to see South Africa bat that way, but I'm guessing it almost isn't surprising that they do not seem the force chasing, even though they've got the job done today, Harmy.
No, they're not the force chasing what they are when they bat first, but there's quite a few teams in that. I think India are the same. I think they're a better team chasing than they are batting first, the opposite way around. So it'll be interesting to see if anything comes that, if the two get to the final. It was, I think, predictable that this was going to happen. Everybody was going to bat around Vander Dussen. The one thing I will say about going forward, I think they've got, after this game, they've got more headaches than they had before this game for the selection for the semi-final, because Coetzee has put himself in a place now where Ngidi was nailed on. That's not always guaranteed, and because of the length of their batting, it's been said that they are running with possibly number 10s and number 11s from 8 down over. Pep Bakwayo's just got a quiet little 39 there and got his team over the line. So Andy bowled 7 good overs. So I think South Africa have got a lot more questions after this game about what's next than there were before the game.
Yeah, we'll come to the selection calls for South Africa in a minute, Wasim, but if you're Australia watching this, does it almost make you feel even more confident that look at this team, even in this chase against Afghanistan? We'll come to Afghanistan, but does that give you the impression of a team that is powering its way with full confidence into a semi-final?
Yeah, I mean, it does, bring the question mark. They're not the same team like we've spoken. Another 25-30 runs could have been a tricky chase.
Yeah.
Had it not for Vander Dussen, I thought he played really well. And Pulvekayo, making that contribution. But yeah, they're not the same team. But good thing is that they got the job done. If they hadn't got the job done, it would have been even more embarrassing going into a semi-final. A lot more questions. But yeah, tough, but they got the job done.
Let's start at the top. What about Temba Bavuma batting his way through what will look like considerable pain? The captain of the side with a big World Cup semi-final coming. Could you make sense of that?
No, not one bit. I really couldn't. I was shouting upstairs and like, "What are you doing, Temba? Like, really? Why are you out there? Why did you even bat in the first place?" Because it happened very early on in the fielding. So part of us was, why didn't you go off? You can see that's fine. He wanted to captain the side. He can do it from a mid-on and mid-off static position. You could get away with it. But to come out, open the batting, thinking, yeah, he must be fine. He'll run this off, not a problem at all. But the way he batted and his running between the wickets was something you just didn't understand. And going forward, has he put more headaches in the way of the selection point of view? Because do you go in with even though he's your captain, do you go in with a half-fit opening batter while you've got a fully fit opening batter who has come into the competition before in a little bit of form? So I think, again, you scratch your head and look at what were you thinking there?
Yeah. Does it almost seem like it's not just about fitness, it's also about form, and that Temba Bavuma was so desperate to get a score going into the semi-final. Could you think it was at least worth him trying to get a score today? Because in the end, what has this achieved?
Yeah, I think he should have batted in the middle order if at all it needed, and given himself a rest. But again, he's done probably more damage to him than any good. But yeah, I mean, if he's not fit, then it's pretty much straightforward.
Yeah.
That Riza Hendricks will come in and Aiden Markram. He's led really well, don't get that wrong, but yeah, he's not contributed with the bat.
Yeah, that's the problem that they have. Hendricks has already featured in this tournament when Bavuma had an injury starting with the game against England. So there is something that they will have to figure out. Vander Dussen, though, just the kind of chase that you almost sense a player like Vander Dussen cherishes or embraces.
Yeah, it seems to be the challenge he wants. He goes into a game where if you bat first, he is going to play the same innings. I think he didn't need to explode. We finished the game with 2.5 overs to spare. But he would have in normal 50 over game if he had batted first. He would have gone 10 overs earlier than when he did. He didn't need to in this game. He would try and get 125 of 125 balls with others batting around him to propel themselves with the strike rate they've got to a big score. In this game, you just knew once he got past 25 balls, it's going to be difficult to get him out. And then once you couldn't get him out, you knew that he was just going to take the game as deep as possible. As long as he had partners at the other end that were going to stick with him. And Pep Lecquayo, to be fair, I think at one point, Rassi might have thought, I'm going to have a go here because I might then get into Kutsia, Mia Maharaj and Rabada. But I think Pep Lecquayo played a little gem of an innings to keep Vander Dussen in the third gear that he needed to be in to get himself a position to take his team over the line.
So I guess if we look at the course of the tournament of how South Africa batted, Wasim, the only batter that seems to be playing his own game in both batting first and chasing is Rassi. It's the big hitters, the flamboyant players that have this stark contrast. Does that tell you anything?
Yeah, I mean, it does tell you that you don't need to go at fifth gear all the time. You need to bat sensibly, and then even I'm surprised the way Aiden Markram has batted in the second innings, even though he's got 90 odd against Pakistan, but he was very lucky, and kind of shots that he played, and he was lucky that he didn't get out. And again today was a surprising the way he got out. So yeah,
we've seen him develop this reputation of being a chaser in the IPL. That's not quite the Markram we're
not
seeing
in the 50
chases.
overs. Yeah. So I'm surprised. Again, we spoke about it, the shot selection. But Rassi has stuck to his game. He likes reverse sweeping, he likes sweeping. But once they got the slip in, he's just happy to rotate the strike and take every boundary now and then. But he played very sensibly. Like Hami said, it took the game deep. Run rate wasn't an issue. And then Pulvekayo came in. And obviously that partnership helped. Had Shahidi got that catch, would have been an
there was a
interesting.
chance.
Yeah, it would have been an interesting one. How Rassi would have taken the game after that.
It almost is a culmination of Afghanistan. What a wonderful campaign it's been. So let's talk about Afghanistan before we end with perhaps a word looking ahead to the semi-final for South Africa. But Shahidi's catch is a story that I don't want to start with the negatives, but I'm sure Afghanistan will also be thinking this is by far exceeding our expectations. 4 wins in a World Cup. Could have been 5, could have been 6. If I even go back to the New Zealand game, they dropped 5 catches against New Zealand, or 6 catches against New Zealand. They could have ended up with 6 or 7 wins had just a few more areas been polished.
And I think that's the thing with Jonathan Trott. He'd be looking at the fine margins of explaining everything. Once they've had a debrief and a chance to celebrate, really embrace what they've done over the course of the last 6.5, 7 weeks, I would imagine, the next step. You'll have the whiteboard out, the next step. Where do we go from here? And how do we get better? And that for me is a small thing compared to if they'd gone collapse, or they'd gone 10 and over in the power play, or couldn't bowl it to death, then you'd say there's a fundamental issue with Afghanistan cricket in these passages of play. But I think from a fielding point of view, you can work so hard on it to make yourself better, and that has been the underlying problem. Dropping the catches, Majib dropped the catch in the game against Australia. That possibly would have got them into the semi-final. And I think that's something that I imagine Jonathan Trott will identify for the next phase of Afghanistan's development, that we've learned how to bat in the middle overs. We've learned how to access the power play. We can score big runs. We can take wickets in power play and out power play. We know how to squeeze opposition. So all these ticks and boxes, I would imagine he'll go through on positives for the tournament. But the biggest thing I would imagine he'd be frustrated at is you can work harder on your fielding to make you better. It doesn't. That's across the board. That's every nation in the world. And I think that's the thing coming out of this tournament. That's one of the big things that's let them down.
Yeah.
That should have been something that should have been a positive, because you can be good enough. You can be not good enough for the bat, not good enough for the ball, and put up with it. But you can work so hard on your fielding, you can make yourself better. And I think that's where, if he is going to lose any sleep at night, Jonathan Trott and the Afghanistan captain, I think that might be just a thing from this tournament.
It's funny because if you would have told Afghanistan start of the tournament 4 wins, they would have taken it.
Yeah.
But now you're almost having to deal with a group which would, I'm sure, thinking we had the best chance of making the semi-final as we look back at all the teams that are scrapping the results. Their fate was in their hands. Yeah. How do you work with a bunch of players like this now to ensure that Afghanistan cricket continues to go on the rise, or do you think it will? It's in good shape at the moment.
I think it's going in the right direction. They've improved from how they started the tournament. Again, that loss against Bangladesh.
Yeah, bizarre. We haven't even mentioned that.
Yeah. Had they played them now, or in the middle of the tournament, I'm sure they would have given them tough time or beaten Bangladesh. But they've gone in the right direction. It's just the fielding at times have let them down. And I feel another thing to improve for them is getting into the mindset of getting away from the spinner's mindset that only spin can take the wickets. They need to develop their fast bowlers as well, because that's not going to be similar all the time. Rashid, Nabi is going to go, Mujib. They need to develop their fast bowlers, and that is how they can take wickets as well. So develop that fast bowling unit, and I think improve the fielding, and they are a complete package, I feel.
Yeah, especially the next 50-over World Cup in South Africa, Zimbabwe, Namibia. You can't possibly imagine playing 4 spinners regularly there.
No, you can't. But if you look at Nabi and think, if Nabi goes, there's an opening for a bowler, a frontline seam bowler to come in, or an all-rounder, a bowling all-rounder to go with Ahmedabad, who has been excellent. So by the time that tournament comes around, Ahmedabad might have turned into a genuine all-rounder and taken Nabi's spot as a number 6. Then you might have two seamers, 2 spinners, 3 spinners, and then maybe shoring up the batting. So I'm sure that's what they're trying to do from a development point of view. But all said and done, they've been probably I think they've been the highlight of the tournament.
Yes.
I really do believe they've been the highlight of the tournament. We expected India to be, we expected England to be, but they weren't. The semi-finalists, they were a big 4. You expect that. You wouldn't expect Afghanistan to play the way they've done. For me, they are the team of the tournament.
I'd love for you to almost in a minute try and reflect on their campaign and pick out perhaps your favourite Afghanistan moment. And you can pick the one beating England, Hami, if you'd like. But let me try and sort of think of all the good things they've done. Ibrahim Zadran becoming the first Afghan player to get 100. Just the way they had Australia rattled, and that was in a defeat, in a losing cause. Beating Pakistan, beating England, beating Sri Lanka. There have been some wonderful moments. There have been some celebrations that we've enjoyed. They've taken laps around the ground. The support in Delhi, Wasim, in so many parts of the country for Afghanistan has been terrific. What's been your favourite Afghanistan moment from this World Cup?
Well, I think beating Pakistan, how easily they beat Pakistan in that game, just losing 2 wickets, chasing 280, saying that Pakistan hasn't got the best of the bowling attack, but how easily they've done that. Batting wasn't their strength, it was their spin bowling, is their bowling which won them the game, but how easily they beat in that game stood out for me. I think that started the roller coaster for them.
Yep. Ami?
Yeah, I think team point of view, the Pakistan and the England, the victories are huge for the development going forward. But I think Zadran's 100. I think that tells you everything. Like we spoke about before the game or at half time, about really sort of putting yourself on a pedestal for the next generation to look at you, into somebody to aspire to, and to drive to want to be like, and think there's a future in cricket and in sport. Well, nobody in the World Cup had get 100 from Afghanistan. Zadran was close earlier in the tournament. He went and got 100 in the tournament, and then Ahmedabad nearly got one. So you can see them wanting to strive to be better. Right, he's got our first 100. Right, we go again. We try and get somebody else on that board. So little milestones, and little victories, I think, for Afghanistan in this tournament. But for me, it was Adran getting 100, the first one that have ever been Afghanistan. Fair play.
Brilliant. Excellent campaign. It might well have been Mohammad Nabi's last World Cup game, or you never know, he might go on playing. I think Naveen ul Haq has already announced that he doesn't wish to play the 50-over format anymore. So there will be openings and vacancies for that fast bowling to improve, as Wasim Jaffer and Steve Harmison point out. But well done, Afghanistan. You've been one of the great stories of the 2023 Men's World Cup, and let's hope that continues. You've secured yourself a berth at the next ICC Men's event. That's well known now. Points table will reflect that Afghanistan finish above expectations, winning several hearts and beating some formidable opposition, including 3 former champions en route. Like I said, a tournament of what ifs. What if they would have started better against Bangladesh? What if they held their catches against New Zealand? And what if Mujib held on to that catch against Maxwell? And all those little things could have seen a very different points table. For now, it's a very proud mid-table finish for Hashmatullah Shahidi's men at 8 points. And South Africa had already secured second spot. They close out their league stage and they set up a mouth-watering semi-final against Australia, in all probability at the Eden Gardens on the 16th of November. So let's get a quick comment from Hami and Wasim on South Africa. Do they go into that semi-final as favourites, even though they've started second, even though they finished second and they beat Australia previously in the tournament?
I think it's 50-50. I think both sides have shown their vulnerabilities at times in this tournament. I think Australia, without Maxwell's 200, they would have obviously lost to Afghanistan and potentially not got through. I think there's question marks over them, and I think South Africa are just coming into a sort of bad run of form, even though they got over the line today, where there's chinks in their armoury, there's holes in their game plan, and if they don't bat first, you worry that they might not be able to chase a total that Australia can get. Never mind, we worried that they weren't going to get a total Afghanistan were going to get. So can you imagine if Australia go and put 300 on the board? So I think it is really that close. It's 50-50. It could come down to the toss. South Africa win toss, bat first, then you fancy them. If they don't, then you fancy Australia.
Wasim?
Yeah, pretty much similar. If South Africa bats first, I'll back them to win it. And again, I'm interested to see what kind of team they play. Whether they go with Shamsi or not, because that's Australia's weakness, facing spin. So yeah, I mean, batting first, South Africa. If not, Australia have won moments. They know how to win big moments, big games. So then I'll back Australia.
Yeah, just before I wrap things up, this was of course the last game at the Narendra Modi Stadium before the final. Did it in any event look like a tough surface to bat on? Can we expect something like this for the World Cup final? We've not quite seen a run fest. If I can just quickly recap the Afghanistan games, where England played New Zealand in the opening day, which didn't seem easy for England batting first. We've seen England-Australia play there, which I think also wasn't necessarily a high-scoring thriller. And then you've got this game over here. I think I'm missing one. India-Pakistan, which again was not the most easy batting surface for Babar Azam and co-batting.
It doesn't
first.
look like a 350 or beyond kind of a wicket. It was spinning in the second half, and it didn't look like a lot of dew coming in. But I think it's around that 300 mark kind of a pitch. And it's there for somebody even in the second half. You can you expect the ball to spin. There is some help, but yeah, I mean, looking at that first game, there was nothing. The way Ravi Rachandra batted and the way Conway batted, but there is some help for the bowlers still.
I mean, average score I'm told is 250 here, so we might get one of them old school. 50-over final World Cup.
The 2019 final pitch was a shocker at Lords. That was a shocker. That was a club pitch. Colin de Grandon bowled 10 overs for 30 odd, and it was. I thought it was a poor pitch at Lords. Said that as a proud Englishman. I didn't think it was a great pitch for a final, and it looks as though this will not be the road that we expect. Crash bang wallop 4s and 6s, and let's be entertained. That might just bring South Africa even further into the sort of 55-45 bracket, because if they're not having to chase, if Australia go and get the total and it's not in excess of 280, 300, then it probably does suit South Africa with the way Vander Dussen in the background.
That's at the Eden Gardens, so we'll have to wait and see what surface we get there. But should they come back here? But should they come back here for a final, possibly against India? It may not be the worst venue for to chase.
Worst venue for them to chase,
Very interesting. Will South Africa be back at the Narendra Modi Stadium is the question, and will they end that jinx of going past the World Cup semi-final, never made a final, so this is their opportunity. And of course now it's just looking ahead to a big week to finish off the World Cup. This is where I say thank you very much to Wasim Jaffer for his time on our show. He's going to be off to Vijayawada tomorrow for his coaching commitments. All the best, Wasim, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, Steve Harmison is going to be going back to the UK. Any message you'd like him to carry to your friend and his former teammate and captain, Michael Vaughan?
I can't believe you're taking it off him. I can't believe you're taking it off him. Stand up to him. Yeah. We used to stand up to him and he used to back down.
He's
Get into him.
Down. Yeah, I am.
Yeah. All right, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Hami and Wasim. Steve Harmison will be with us tomorrow, of course. So look forward to your company for the last double header of the tournament. Australia v Bangladesh in the morning. 10:15 is when we begin our build-up to that game in Pune. And we'll have you covered right through the day for what should be Pakistan's last game. True, it's impractical equation for them to have to qualify now. And the defending champions would like to bow out on a high as well. So that's no easy fixture, with England picking up the points against Netherlands and needing a couple of points to ensure their own Champions Trophy prospects. We look forward to your company tomorrow then on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday, powered by Qatar Airways. Do download the mobile app. There's plenty being said and written on the World Cup. There's some big news coming through from Sri Lanka as well with regards to administration, and I'm sure we want to hear from the South African camp on Temba Bavuma's fitness, Lungi and Gidi's fitness, so that's something that we'll have you covered on the app. We will see you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
Stunning looks, then swift